Hello there. For today's video I traveled to South Africa. This is the capital of everything that's politically correct and Nelson Mandela. This video is for those of you who wonder why people who are left-wing or right-wing are so, even though they might be genetically quite similar to each other or have similar backgrounds. For example, your sister might be left-wing and you can be right-wing. So how was that possible? Well, the reason is there's a quirk in our brain. This quirk in our brain comes from the fact that the brain uses the same area as it uses to notify you of physical pain and of emotional pain. So we only discovered this in 2009 using MRI machines. They saw that the same area in the brain lit up when you pinch somebody or when you ask the person to tell a lie to you. When you experience emotional distress, you actually experience physical pain. Now that brings us to politically correctness. So political correctness is actually a lie, because otherwise people would just call it correctness. So if you are politically correct, you're actually lying all the time. And you come under emotional stress from lying. And this is the same part in the brain that causes us physical pain. So if we have to be politically correct, then we are in physical pain. So our brain needs to relieve itself of this pain. And the only way it can relieve itself is by actually tricking itself to believe that whatever it's saying is actually true. And as soon as it believes that something is true, the pain stops. And that is why people who have been saying politically correct things under duress for long enough actually start believing it. And this isn't new. Psychologists actually have a name for this effect, the stress in the brain that causes it to have this pain. It is called cognitive dissonance, but that's a complicated name. I just call it the Zoolander-effect. People who suffer from this are Zoolanders because they have been brainwashed. And this brings us back to the original question we asked. How can people who are genetically very similar, like brothers or sisters, and who grew up in the same house, be on totally different political spectrums, like very right-wing or very, very liberal left-wing? The fact is that, yes, they actually were quite similar and were fed the same information, but one of them tripped over and became a Zoolander, and he went all the way to the left and became completely politically correct, believing the lies. Ironically, that is why the right-hand side of politics is called right, because you are still correct, you are in the right. An interesting quirk about this is that people who are the most successfully politically correct probably believed politically correctness the least of all of us. So it was the biggest lie possible to their brain, and their brain couldn't handle it at all. So that's why their brain tripped and went over the precipice and shut down and tricked them into believing that politically correctness is actually the truth. An example of how politically correctness is a lie follows. If you are politically correct, you usually say that different races have, on average, have got the same talents, exactly different genders have got exactly the same talents. We just know this is a lie because these different groups are put into groups according to the genes they carry. So your gene determines your race, your genes determine your gender, and we know that genes also determine every other talent you've got and all your abilities. Groups that are defined by their different genetics will have different talents within those groups because genetics determine all our talents. Now you might ask for some additional evidence of this, but all I can tell you is that the evidence is there, but the evidence might also be closer at home than you think. The human brain is 2,000 times faster thinking than the fastest supercomputer on Earth. So if any computational system were to find out whether there are actually differences between races or gender, it's probably your brain. And especially if this is confirmed by what other humans have seen and noticed about the human race and then genders, then these are a bunch of different, very, very smart brains agreeing with each other. So stereotypes are the best answer we've got.